The chandelier at the Plaza Hotel glittered like a sky of 1,000 diamonds. Cameras flashed, champagne flowed, and whispers filled the marble hall as Manhattan's elite gathered to celebrate the Visionary of the Year award. Cole Whitman, the 38-year-old tech CEO everyone admired, walked through the grand doors with confidence carved into every step. His hand wasn't holding his wife's, it was holding another woman's. Lauren Pierce froze near the edge of the crowd. Her satin dress stretched gently over her 6-month pregnancy bump. She had spent the afternoon believing tonight was about Cole's success, their shared dream. She'd helped him build Whitman Labs from their kitchen table in Ohio, writing code while he pitched investors. She thought the company and their marriage was theirs. But when the cameras turned toward him, Cole placed his arm around Sienna Vale, the company's PR director, and smiled for the flashes. The host's voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Cole Whitman and his partner, Sienna Vale." For a heartbeat, the world stopped breathing. The photographers gasped, phones came up, and every whisper turned into a wave of shock. Lauren's heart cracked inside her chest. She couldn't move, couldn't blink. Her hand instinctively covered her stomach. The baby kicked as if sensing the storm. Cole pretended not to see her. Sienna, wearing a silver gown that sparkled like ice, leaned into him and kissed his cheek for the cameras. The crowd clapped, hesitant, confused. A journalist whispered, "Where's the wife?" Lauren turned away, tears burning her eyes. Naomi Brooks, her best friend and attorney, pushed through the crowd and grabbed her arm. "Lauren, don't make a scene." "Not here." But Lauren's legs were trembling. "He told me this was a private event," she whispered. Naomi's face went pale. "He planned this." Cole's voice filled the microphone. "Every man needs someone who believes in his future. Tonight I'm standing beside that someone." The room gasped again. The words hit Lauren like a blade. Her glass of sparkling water slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. People turned. Cole's eyes flicked toward her for just 1 second, cold, detached, victorious. Security moved closer, unsure what to do. Naomi quickly guided Lauren toward the side exit, whispering, "Walk away, don't let them see you break." But the truth was, she already had. Outside, the night air was sharp and cold. Lauren stood beneath the golden awning of the plaza, tears cutting through her makeup. Across the street, Central Park's trees swayed in the wind. Her phone buzzed with notifications, messages from board members, journalists, even her mother. "Is it true? Are you okay?" She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her iPhone and opened Cole's latest interview headline. "Visionary CEO credits his PR director for saving his company." Beneath the article was a picture of them, his hand protectively on Sienna's waist. A black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. Cole stepped out again, laughing with investors. He saw Lauren standing there, her eyes red. "You shouldn't have come," he said quietly, voice colder than the night. Lauren looked at him, her voice breaking. "You said this company was our baby." Cole smirked. "Some babies are meant to grow up without their mothers." He turned away, his Rolex flashing under the streetlight. Naomi caught Lauren's arm before she collapsed. "We'll fight this," Naomi whispered. But Lauren shook her head, staring at the hotel's glowing sign. She wasn't thinking of revenge yet, just survival. Behind them, a photographer snapped one last picture. Lauren, pregnant, abandoned, standing in the snow under the plaza lights. That image would appear on every business blog by morning. And by morning, the whole world would know that the pregnant wife of Manhattan's favorite CEO had just been left for his mistress. The next morning, the city looked the same, but Lauren Pierce's world had shattered into glass. Headlines screamed from every corner of the internet. CEO leaves pregnant wife for PR director. Whitman Labs power couple no more. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She sat alone in her small rented apartment on the Upper West Side, the winter light cutting through the blinds like cold knives. On the coffee table lay the remains of last night's chaos, a crumpled gala invitation, a cracked iPhone screen, and an unopened Amazon box containing baby clothes with tiny embroidered clouds. Her hands trembled as she touched the box. It was supposed to be a surprise for Cole, a way to tell him the baby was a boy. Now the blue onesie inside felt like a cruel joke. Her MacBook Pro glowed on the table, still open on a frozen frame from CNBC's morning show. Cole was smiling on screen, his voice smooth and rehearsed. Sometimes love changes, he said, and so does leadership. Sienna sat beside him, perfectly styled, her fingers brushing his arm. The host laughed, saying they looked powerful together. Lauren slammed the laptop shut. The sound echoed through the empty room. A knock at the door broke the silence. It was Naomi Brooks, dressed in a gray coat, her eyes tired but steady. She carried 2 Starbucks cups and a folder thick with papers. "You need to drink something," she said gently. Lauren forced a weak smile, taking the cup. "I don't even know where to start." Naomi placed the folder on the table. "Start here," she said. "Cole's legal team filed for divorce this morning. He's asking for full control of Whitman Labs and—" She hesitated. "Temporary custody of the baby after birth, claiming you're emotionally unstable." Lauren froze. "He's taken my child?" Naomi's eyes softened. "He's trying to scare you, but he's also trying to erase you. From the company, from his image, from everything." Lauren leaned back, clutching her belly. The baby kicked again, a small reminder that she wasn't alone. "I gave up my career for him. I wrote the early company frameworks, the ethical code. Everything we built was from our dining table. How can he take that?" Naomi opened the folder. "He can't. Not legally, but he's banking on you being too broken to fight." Lauren wiped her tears. "He's right about one thing. I am broken." "But you're still the co-founder," Naomi said firmly. "You just need to prove it." The word prove echoed in her mind like a lifeline. She thought of the endless nights, spreadsheets open, coding, drafting investor decks while Cole smiled for the press. There had to be a trace of her somewhere. An email, a signature, a document, something. She turned on her MacBook again, opening old folders from 3 years ago. Each file felt like digging through a grave. Meeting notes, equity drafts, contracts she never fully read because she trusted him. Then she found a document titled Pierce Holdings LLC, Operating Agreement. Her name was on the first line, sole member Lauren Pierce. Her heart skipped. "Naomi, what is this?" Naomi looked closer, eyes widening. "It's the parent company Cole used to restructure Whitman Labs before Series B funding. He made you the owner, for tax protection." Lauren stared at the screen. "So technically," Naomi nodded slowly, "you might own the company." The room went silent again, but this time it wasn't despair. It was the quiet before a storm. Lauren leaned back, taking a slow breath. Outside, New York traffic hummed like a heartbeat. She looked at Naomi and said, "Then we fight." Naomi smiled faintly. "Good. Because this is just the beginning." And at that moment, for the first time since the betrayal, Lauren Pierce felt something she hadn't felt in days. Power. 3 days later, Lauren walked into the towering glass building on Park Avenue that once felt like home. Whitman Labs, the empire she helped build, now carried her husband's name on every wall. The marble lobby smelled of fresh coffee and ambition. People glanced up from their MacBooks as she entered. Some nodded with sympathy, others quickly looked away. Scandal traveled faster than light in Manhattan. Naomi had arranged a discreet meeting with Marcus Chen, the company's CFO, one of the few who hadn't turned his back on Lauren. He was waiting in the executive conference room, a pen twirling between his fingers. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly when she entered. Lauren gave a tired smile. "It used to be my office." Marcus sighed. "I know, but things changed fast. Cole's been making moves. He's telling investors you've stepped away due to stress. He's preparing to sell the Aegis AI program to a hedge fund in Delaware." She froze. "Aegis? That's the medical ethics algorithm. It's supposed to protect patients' data." "Not anymore," Marcus said. "If he sells it, they'll use it for predictive insurance pricing. People will lose coverage. He doesn't care. He wants the payout." Lauren's pulse quickened. "Can we stop him?" Marcus hesitated, then handed her a USB drive. "These are the transaction drafts and internal messages. It's risky for me to give you this, but I still remember the nights you stayed here past midnight while Cole was at the gym posting hustle quotes. You built the moral backbone of this company. You deserve to fight for it." Lauren's throat tightened. "Thank you, Marcus." He looked toward the door nervously. "There's something else. The corporate structure. Whitman Labs isn't directly owned by Cole. It's under Pierce Holdings LLC. That name, that's you, isn't it?" She nodded slowly. "We found the documents. He used my name to protect the IP before Series B." Marcus leaned forward. "Then you might have a chance. If the paperwork holds, you're the owner on record. But be careful. Cole's already cleaning files, deleting email trails. He's acting like the king of a castle he doesn't own. Before she could respond, the glass door swung open. Cole Whitman stood there, every inch the polished CEO in a tailored navy suit, a Mont Blanc pen clipped to his pocket. Sienna trailed behind him, holding a clipboard. "Well," Cole said, voice smooth as poison, "if it isn't my runaway wife." Lauren stood her ground. "I'm here for what's mine." Cole smirked. "Yours, please. You were just the supportive spouse. You never understood the business." Marcus spoke carefully. "Sir, she co-authored the ethical frameworks and led early testing." Cole's smile faltered. "Marcus, remind me who signs your checks?" Sienna whispered something in his ear, eyes filled with amusement. Lauren caught the reflection of her own pale face in the glass wall and felt anger burn away her fear. "You can't rewrite history," she said. "You might control the headlines, but I still have proof." Cole's jaw tightened. "Try me. You'll lose everything." Lauren took a step closer, her voice low. "Then I have nothing left to fear." For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the ticking clock and the hum of the city outside. Cole finally turned, his tone ice-cold. "Security will escort you out, and Marcus, you're on thin ice." As Lauren walked away, Marcus slipped her a folded note. "Check the Delaware filings. The truth is there." In the elevator, her reflection stared back, a woman betrayed, humiliated, but no longer powerless. Because now she knew exactly where to strike next. By Monday morning, New York was buzzing with another headline. CEO's pregnant ex-wife spirals out of control. Sienna Vale, ever the PR mastermind, had made sure of it. She'd turned Lauren's silence into a weapon. Anonymous sources close to the company painted a picture of a fragile woman unable to cope with success, a wife who sabotaged her husband's reputation out of jealousy. Every major business blog carried the same narrative. The machine had begun. Lauren scrolled through her phone, disbelief turning into nausea. Her image was everywhere. Photos of her crying outside the plaza, the broken glass on the marble floor, captions reading, "Unstable and vindictive." The comments were worse. "She should have known her place. She's playing the victim." Each word cut deeper than the last. Naomi called. "Don't look at it," she said urgently. "It's bait. They're trying to paint you as emotionally unfit before the custody hearing." Lauren swallowed hard. "It's working. Even my mother called asking if I'm okay." Naomi's voice softened. "That's exactly what Sienna wants. She's the PR director. She knows how to spin a story." Meanwhile, across town, in Whitman Labs' glossy headquarters, Sienna sat at her sleek glass desk, phone in hand, scrolling through analytics. "Engagements through the roof," she told Cole. "Public sympathy is with us. Investors love a clean narrative. Successful CEO moves on from toxic relationship. The baby angle keeps people talking." Cole looked out the window, admiring his reflection in the skyline. "Good. Make sure no one questions the restructuring. I want full control before the quarter ends." Sienna smiled. "Already working on it. But we need to make her look unfit to run a company. Maybe leak something about medication or stress during pregnancy?" Cole hesitated, but only for a moment. "Do what you need to. Just make sure she stays silent." Back in her apartment, Lauren's phone buzzed again, another article notification. She turned it face down, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, "Don't give them what they want." Her reflection in the dark TV screen looked almost like a stranger. Tired eyes, a bruise of exhaustion under each one. A knock came at the door. Marcus Chen stood there, his face tense. "I shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "They're monitoring my email, but you need to see this." He handed her a manila envelope. Inside were printed screenshots, messages between Cole and Sienna. In one, Sienna had written, "We'll leak the emotional instability story Monday morning. Once the board votes, she's out completely." Lauren's eyes filled with tears, but anger steadied her voice. "They planned everything." Marcus nodded. "Cole's about to call an emergency board meeting. He wants to announce your removal as co-founder officially." Lauren gripped the papers. "Can he do that?" Marcus shook his head. "Not legally. But perception is power. If the board believes you're unstable, they'll distance themselves. Once he sells the company, it's over." Lauren sat back, her heart pounding. The walls felt smaller, the city louder. Naomi's words echoed in her head. "They're trying to erase you." She looked down at her belly. "He can take my name out of the headlines, but he's not taking what's mine." Marcus nodded. "Then you'd better move fast. He's hosting a press dinner at the Ritz-Carlton tomorrow night. That's when he'll make it official. Lauren stood, her determination returning like fire. Then I'll be there first. Marcus smiled faintly. Now that's the Lauren Pierce I remember. As he left, Lauren opened her laptop again. This time she didn't cry. She opened the Delaware Business Registry and began searching line by line for the truth Marcus hinted at. And somewhere between anger and resolve, she found the name that would change everything. Pierce Holdings, LLC. The night before Cole's big press dinner, Manhattan was wrapped in rain and neon. Lauren sat at her kitchen table, surrounded by documents, receipts, and old email threads. The only sound was the steady hum of the refrigerator and the tap of her fingers on the MacBook keys. Each click felt like digging deeper into her own past. She searched the Delaware registry for Pierce Holdings, LLC. At first there was nothing. Then at 1:47 a.m. a file appeared. Status active. Sole member, Lauren Pierce. Her breath caught. It was real. She hadn't imagined it. Her name was still there, stamped and notarized. She covered her mouth, tears welling, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from the shock of proof. A sudden knock startled her. Naomi stepped inside, soaked from the rain, holding a brown leather case. "I couldn't sleep," she said, "and I found something you'll want to see." Lauren frowned. "What is it?" Naomi placed the case on the table and unzipped it. Inside were old company binders, tax filings, and a faded copy of the operating agreement for Pierce Holdings, LLC. "I pulled this from my old legal archive," Naomi explained. "Cole asked me to draft these documents 2 years ago. He wanted Whitman Labs to be owned by a separate LLC for investor safety. He said he didn't want his name attached to the IP in case of lawsuits. Guess who he made the legal owner?" Lauren whispered, "Me." Naomi nodded. "Exactly. You're the only member listed. Cole's just the managing partner. It means he runs the operations, but you own the entity." Lauren stared at the papers, her hands trembling. "He thought I wouldn't notice. He thought I'd never need to." Naomi leaned closer. "He underestimated you. But we have to move carefully. If he realizes you've discovered this, he'll bury evidence or file amendments. Tomorrow, at the dinner, he's planning to announce full control. That's your moment to let the truth speak." Lauren's eyes flicked to the clock. 2:15 a.m. "We have less than 24 hours. Naomi began sorting through the folders, pulling out what mattered. Signed documents, timestamps, notarized pages. "We'll need witnesses. Marcus can testify to the structure. I'll prepare the filings. But Lauren, are you ready to face him in public again?" Lauren touched her belly, feeling the baby's soft movement. "I'm not just fighting for me anymore." Naomi smiled faintly. "Then you're already stronger than him." The rain grew heavier, tapping against the window like a heartbeat. Lauren turned back to her laptop, scanning the signature page. There it was, Cole's name, right beneath hers, acknowledging her as sole owner. It was ironic. The same arrogance that made him hide assets for tax protection had now handed her the key to everything. She exhaled slowly. Tomorrow, he'll see what it feels like to lose control. Naomi zipped up the leather case and placed it beside her. "Keep this close. It's not just paper. It's your freedom." When Naomi left, Lauren sat in silence. The city lights reflected on the wet street outside, flickering like ghosts of old memories. Late nights coding together, laughter over takeout promises whispered about building something that would change lives. Those words felt different now. She opened a blank document and began typing her statement for the press. Every word was sharp, calm, precise. No rage, no tears, just truth. By dawn, the rain stopped. The city glowed pale gold under the morning light. Lauren closed her laptop, placed the leather case in her tote, and looked at herself in the mirror. Her reflection no longer looked broken. It looked ready. Tomorrow night, at the Ritz-Carlton, Cole Whitman would learn that the woman he tried to erase owned everything he built. The ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton shimmered under golden chandeliers, the air thick with perfume and ambition. It was the kind of night where fortunes were sealed over champagne, where power wore a smile. Cole Whitman stood at the center of it all, shaking hands with investors, his Rolex glinting under the light. Cameras clicked as Sienna Vale floated beside him in a diamond gown, whispering into his ear like a shadow that knew too much. Lauren Pierce watched from the balcony above. Hidden behind a marble pillar, She could see the stage, the crowd, the press banner flashing Whitman Labs, the future of ethical AI. The irony nearly made her laugh. Her heart thudded against her ribs, not from fear, but from fury controlled so tightly it had become focus. Naomi stood beside her, phone in hand, whispering, "The Delaware filings are confirmed. The LLC still lists you as sole owner. I've got the legal packet ready. Once he announces the sale, you stand up and end it." Lauren took a breath. "And Marcus? He's downstairs monitoring the live stream. He'll record every word." Across the ballroom, Cole raised his glass. "Tonight," he began, his voice amplified through the mic, "marks a new chapter. Whitman Labs is expanding. Our next partnership will revolutionize healthcare forever." Applause filled the room. Investors leaned forward. Reporters scribbled notes. Lauren's grip tightened on her tote, the leather case with every document that proved his lie. Cole continued, "We faced challenges, personal and professional, but leadership means moving forward without baggage." His eyes flicked upward, as if he knew she was watching. "Sometimes, to protect a company's future, you have to let go of the past." Sienna smiled sweetly at the audience. "And tonight, we celebrate that courage." Lauren's stomach turned. She could feel the baby move, as if reminding her what was truly at stake. She turned to Naomi. "If I don't speak now, he'll sell it. Everything we built, everything I fought for." Naomi nodded. "Then go take back your story." Lauren stepped out from the shadows, descending the grand staircase. The crowd's chatter softened as heads turned. The sight of her, the pregnant ex-wife the tabloids had painted unstable, sent a ripple through the room. Cole froze. "Lauren?" His confident tone cracked for the first time. Lauren walked calmly toward the stage. "Don't stop your speech, Cole. You were doing so well pretending." Sienna's smile faded. "This is not the time or place," Lauren cut her off. "It's exactly the time. Because while you're busy selling lies, I'm here with the truth." She reached into her bag and held up the folder. "Pierce Holdings LLC, the entity that owns Whitman Labs. My name, my signature, notarized and active." Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Flashbulbs exploded like fireworks. Cole's face drained of color. "You don't know what you're talking about," he snapped. Naomi appeared beside her, holding her phone high. "Delaware Business Registry, live verification," she announced. "Sole number, Lauren Pierce." Sienna stepped back, panic flickering in her eyes. "Cole, say something." But Cole couldn't. The crowd whispered, recording every second. Reporters were already typing. Lauren looked at him steadily. "You built your empire on my work, my trust, and my silence. You'll never take those again." Security hesitated at the edge of the crowd, unsure whether to intervene. Cole finally found his voice. "This isn't over." Lauren smiled, calm and cold. "It just started." As she turned to leave, cameras followed her. Naomi whispered, "We just changed the narrative." And for the first time in months, Lauren Pierce didn't feel like a victim. She felt like the headline. The morning sunlight bled through the curtains of Lauren's apartment, golden and quiet, a strange peace after the storm. Her phone buzzed non-stop on the counter. Every major news outlet had the same headline splashed across their front pages. "Pregnant wife exposes CEO during live gala. Whitman Labs ownership scandal unfolds." Lauren poured herself a glass of water, her hands steady for the first time in months. The silence felt earned. She turned on the TV, and there he was. Cole Whitman, storming past reporters, his face pale under the flashing lights. Sienna trailed behind him, eyes hidden behind oversized sunglasses. The ticker across the screen read, "Board demands emergency review following ownership revelation." Naomi called. "You're officially trending #1 on Twitter," she said. "Half the country thinks you're a hero, the other half wants to buy your book." Lauren let out a small laugh. "I just wanted the truth out." "Well," Naomi said, "you got it, but brace yourself. Cole's team will fight back. They'll claim the transfer was symbolic, that you were just a passive spouse. They'll try to twist it." Lauren nodded. "Let them try." A knock at the door interrupted. It was Marcus Chen, holding a cup of coffee and looking exhausted. "I didn't sleep," he said. "The board called me at 3 a.m. They're in chaos. Investors are panicking. Some are threatening to pull out if Cole doesn't step down." Lauren blinked. "Already?" Marcus handed her a printed statement. "They're requesting an official audit of Whitman Labs' ownership. Once that happens, the truth becomes legal record. But Cole, he's desperate. He might destroy documents." Lauren looked at Naomi through the phone screen. Then we need to move before he does. Later that afternoon, Naomi met her downtown at a quiet cafe near Bryant Park. The air smelled of roasted beans and rain. Naomi spread out her laptop and a folder of filings. I've submitted an injunction to preserve company data. Marcus's testimony is attached. We'll file it in court tomorrow. Lauren sipped her coffee, trying to absorb everything. It's strange, she said softly. I used to spend my days writing product pitches, planning launches. Now I'm fighting for my name. Naomi smiled gently. Sometimes life rebrands you without asking permission. Across the city, Cole sat in his penthouse, pacing. The skyline outside glowed cold and metallic. She humiliated me in front of the entire industry, he growled, throwing a glass against the wall. Sienna flinched. Cole, you need to stay calm. We can spin this. Say it was a misunderstanding, temporary legal structure. She ruined me, he snapped. Everything I worked for, gone because I trusted her name on a damn LLC. Sienna hesitated. Then maybe you shouldn't have used it. His glare cut through her, sharp and dangerous. You forget who made you? The tension between them hung heavy. The golden couple was cracking. Back at Lauren's apartment, she packed a small overnight bag. You're really going through with this hearing tomorrow? Naomi asked. Lauren nodded. If he wants to fight in court, he'll get one. But this time, I'm not walking in as his wife. I'm walking in as his equal. Marcus texted, board voted. Emergency hearing set for 10 a.m. You'll want to be there. Lauren looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline, sunlight bouncing off glass towers she once dreamed inside. Everything looked different now, still beautiful, but no longer unreachable. She whispered to herself, he took everything I loved and used it against me. Now I'll take everything he built and give it back to the people who earned it. Her phone pinged again, a news alert. Cole Whitman under SEC review following ownership scandal. And as the city stirred awake, Lauren Pierce knew the empire that betrayed her was finally beginning to crumble. The next morning, the courthouse on Center Street buzzed with reporters, cameras, and whispers. Snowflakes drifted through the cold Manhattan air, melting as they touched the stone steps. Lauren Pierce stepped out of a black car, her hand resting gently on her pregnant belly. She wore a tailored black coat, simple but powerful, her hair tied back neatly. There was no trace of the woman who had cried outside the plaza weeks ago. The world was about to see someone new. Naomi walked beside her, carrying a silver briefcase filled with the evidence, the LLC filings, the notarized signatures, the financial statements. Are you ready for this? She asked quietly. Lauren nodded. I've been ready since the night he lied. Inside the courtroom, Cole Whitman was already waiting. His suit was perfect, his expression carved from stone. But his eyes betrayed something new, fear. Sienna sat behind him, dressed in muted beige, avoiding the cameras. The room buzzed with tension. The judge, a composed woman named Audrey Thompson, took her seat. We're here to determine ownership and control of Whitman Labs and to address allegations of financial misconduct, she began. Both parties will present evidence. Cole's lawyer rose first, smooth and confident. Your Honor, while Mrs. Pierce's name appears on certain documents, the structure was purely administrative. Mr. Whitman is the operational and creative leader of the company. Mrs. Pierce was a supportive spouse, not an active participant. Lauren's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Naomi placed a hand on her arm, whispering, let him talk himself into a corner. When it was their turn, Naomi stood, calm but sharp. Your Honor, this is not a story of a supportive spouse. This is a story of a partner erased. We have proof that Mrs. Pierce co-developed the core algorithm for Aegis AI, co-authored internal policies, and managed early investor communications. We also have the original Delaware registration confirming that Pierce Holdings LLC, fully owned by Mrs. Pierce, is the controlling entity of Whitman Labs. She placed the documents on the bench. The judge leaned forward, scanning the signatures. These are notarized, she said. Filed and active. Mr. Whitman, can you explain this? Cole shifted, his voice cracking slightly. It was for tax efficiency. It doesn't mean she owns anything. Naomi smiled faintly. Your Honor, tax efficiency doesn't override ownership law. He signed these documents. She didn't just hold the paper, she held the power. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Cameras flashed. Cole's lawyer whispered urgently into his ear, but it was too late. The truth was on record. Lauren finally stood. Her voice was steady. I never wanted to destroy him. I just wanted to be seen for what I built. He took my name, my work, my future, and tried to sell it. I won't let my child grow up thinking silence is strength. Judge Thompson nodded slowly. The documentation is clear. Until further audit, legal ownership and authority remain with Mrs. Lauren Pierce. Cole's face went blank. For the first time, the man who once owned every room looked small. Sienna's eyes widened in disbelief. As the gavel came down, a collective gasp filled the courtroom. Naomi turned to Lauren, tears glinting in her eyes. You did it. Lauren exhaled, the weight lifting from her chest. No, she said softly, we did. Outside, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing in the pale winter sun. Lauren shielded her eyes but smiled for the first time in months. She didn't need a PR team. She had the truth. That evening, back at her apartment, she lit a single candle, placed her hand on her stomach, and whispered, "We're free now." And in that quiet glow, Lauren Pierce wasn't just reborn, she was finally seen. The following week, Whitman Labs' headquarters on Park Avenue was in chaos. The company Cole once ruled like a kingdom was now frozen by shock. Employees whispered in hallways, investors demanded answers, and news crews camped outside the building. The empire that once bore his name now legally belonged to the woman he betrayed. At 9 a.m., Lauren Pierce arrived at the lobby doors with Naomi by her side. A security guard hesitated, unsure what to do. Then Marcus Chen appeared, holding the elevator open. "Welcome back, Mrs. Pierce," he said with quiet pride. As the elevator ascended, Lauren's reflection stared back at her in the mirrored walls. The woman looking back wasn't timid or broken. She was composed, fierce, deliberate. She wore a charcoal gray suit, her hair tied in a sleek bun, a silver pendant resting on her collarbone. The same pendant she used to wear when Whitman Labs was just a dream in their apartment. When the doors opened, every head in the executive floor turned. Cole was there, pacing, his jaw clenched. Sienna stood near the glass wall, scrolling her phone nervously. The board members sat stiffly at the long table. Lauren entered without hesitation. "Good morning, everyone," she said calmly, setting her leather folder on the table. Cole's voice dripped venom. "You think you can just walk in here after everything you've done?" Naomi raised an eyebrow. "After everything she's done? Mr. Whitman, the courts ruled that Mrs. Pierce holds ownership through Pierce Holdings LLC. We're here to discuss an orderly transition of leadership." Cole slammed his hand on the table. "This is my company." Lauren's gaze was steady. "No, Cole. It was our company. You made sure of that when you put it in my name." Marcus spoke up. For what it's worth, the staff are relieved. They believe in her. Cole spun toward him. "You're fired." Lauren interrupted, her tone like ice. "He's not. You don't have that authority anymore." The room went silent. Cole's eyes burned, but the truth was undeniable. Every legal channel now led through her. Lauren opened her folder and began distributing documents. Effective immediately, all operations will pause pending an internal ethics review. Aegis AI will not be sold. The company will return to its founding mission, medical transparency and patient protection. I'll assume interim CEO responsibilities until the board votes again. Sienna's voice trembled. "You can't do this." Lauren turned to her, calm and precise. "Actually, I can. You're relieved of your duties effective today. HR will escort you out after this meeting." Sienna's face flushed red. "You'll regret this." Lauren leaned forward. "The only thing I regret is trusting people who valued power over integrity." Naomi pressed a key on her laptop, projecting financial charts onto the big screen. These are internal communications showing Cole's intent to sell proprietary technology to hedge funds for personal profit. Under corporate law, that's grounds for termination. The board members shifted uncomfortably. One of them cleared his throat. "Mr. Whitman, perhaps it's best you take a leave of absence until this is resolved." Cole's voice cracked. "You're all making a mistake." Lauren gathered her papers, her tone steady but final. "No, Cole. The mistake was thinking you could destroy me and walk away untouched." She rose, adjusting her jacket. "This meeting is adjourned." As she turned toward the window, the morning sun broke through the gray clouds, reflecting off the skyline. For the first time, she could look at those towers without the ache of betrayal, only clarity. Marcus approached quietly. "They're going to talk about this day for years," he said. Lauren smiled faintly. "Then let them. Maybe they'll remember who really built this place." And as she walked out of that boardroom, The woman once erased became the one name no one could ignore again. A month later, winter began to fade from Manhattan. The streets shimmered under pale sunlight, and the storm that had once surrounded Lauren Pierce was finally quiet. Whitman Labs was hers again, not through revenge, but through truth. The building that once felt like a cage now felt like proof that strength could be rebuilt from ashes. That morning, she arrived early at the office. The walls had been repainted a softer tone, the toxic energy gone. Employees greeted her warmly, not out of fear but respect. Marcus stood at the glass door of her new office holding a cup of tea instead of coffee. "New tradition?" she asked. He smiled. "No more caffeine stress meetings. You said this place needed heart. I figured that starts with peace." Lauren chuckled softly. "I like that." On her desk sat a simple plaque, Lauren Pierce, CEO. It wasn't gold or ornate, just clean silver. It meant more than any trophy or magazine cover ever could. At noon, she held her first all-staff meeting. The atrium filled with hundreds of employees, faces she once feared she'd never see again. She took the stage, her voice clear but gentle. "I know the past few months have been painful," she began. "But pain has a purpose. It wakes us up to what matters. We built Whitman Labs to heal people, not to chase profit. That mission returns today." The room broke into applause. Even Marcus looked misty-eyed. When the meeting ended, she slipped outside to the terrace. The wind from the East River brushed her face. For a long moment, she just breathed. Her phone buzzed, a message from Naomi. "Settlement finalized. Cole's out. No appeals. He signed over everything." Lauren stared at the text, feeling no thrill, no rush of triumph, just release. She typed back, "Thank you. Let's move on." Across town, Cole sat alone in his penthouse, stripped of his title, his board seats, and his reputation. The skyline he once admired now mocked him. He reached for his phone, typing a message to Lauren, "You won," then deleting it. He poured himself another drink instead. Meanwhile, Sienna was photographed leaving the city, her designer bags in tow, another scandal already waiting to replace her. The gossip cycle had moved on, but Lauren's story lingered. Not as gossip, but as a lesson. That night, Naomi and Marcus joined her for dinner at the River Cafe overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge. Candlelight flickered across the table. "So," Naomi said, smiling, "what's next for the most powerful woman in Manhattan?" Lauren laughed softly. "I don't want power. I just want peace, and maybe to build something honest again." Marcus lifted his glass. "To new beginnings." Lauren smiled, touching her glass to theirs. "To never being afraid of the truth." After dinner, she walked alone through the chilly evening. Her hand rested on her stomach, where her baby kicked gently. She whispered, "You saved me without even knowing it." At a nearby bench, she sat for a moment, pulling out her notebook. She began to write, the city lights dancing on the page. Lesson 1, never hand your worth to someone else. Lesson 2, silence is a luxury you can't afford when your name is on the line. Lesson 3, you don't need revenge to win. You just need to remember who you are. She closed the notebook, smiling to herself. Across the river, the skyline glowed, a reminder of everything she survived. As she stood to leave, her phone pinged again, an email notification. Subject, feature interview request, Forbes Women in Leadership. Lauren looked at the message for a long moment, then turned off her phone. Some stories didn't need to be told for profit. Some were meant to be lived. And as the city lights reflected in her eyes, Lauren Pierce finally understood that true power wasn't owning a company. It was owning her ending. Spring had arrived in New York, and with it came a strange kind of calm. The calm that follows a storm so fierce it changes everything. Lauren Pierce stood by the window of her corner office on the 38th floor, watching the city pulse below. The chaos had faded. Reporters no longer camped outside Whitman Labs. The court documents were sealed, the company's future secured. But inside her, an unexpected question lingered. What happens after you win? Her reflection in the glass looked polished, almost untouchable. Perfect hair, black suit, a quiet authority that people respected now. But beneath the surface, she still carried the tremor of all she'd lost. The woman who had once built a dream beside her husband, now built it alone. Marcus knocked lightly before entering. "You're zoning out again," he said, setting down 2 coffees. Lauren smiled faintly. "Just thinking." "Dangerous habit for a CEO," he teased. "Necessary one," she replied. He sat across from her, studying her face. "The board's happy. Investors are stable. You could actually take a vacation, you know. Lauren looked out the window. After everything, I wouldn't know what to do with quiet. Marcus hesitated, then pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. This arrived this morning, from the legal department. Inside was her old wedding ring, returned after the court finalized Cole's asset liquidation. It gleamed like a ghost of another life. Lauren stared at it, silent. Then she closed the box gently. Let it stay in the archive room. It's part of the company's history now. A reminder of what happens when love and ambition lose balance. Marcus nodded. You really have moved on. Moving on isn't forgetting, she said softly. It's forgiving yourself for not seeing the betrayal coming. Across town, Cole sat in a low-profile law office, signing the last of his resignation documents. His suit no longer looked expensive. His face was drawn, older. You'll receive your final settlement in 3 months, his attorney said. Cole barely nodded. He'd lost more than money. He'd lost the illusion that he was invincible. Later that evening, Lauren left the office late. The city lights shimmered against the Hudson, reflections dancing like fragments of memory. She walked toward her car, her heels clicking against the pavement, when a familiar voice called her name. Lauren, she turned. Cole stood across the street, hands in his pockets. He looked smaller somehow, like the world had finally taught him humility. I don't want a scene, she said calmly. I'm not here to fight, he replied, voice low. I just wanted to say, I was wrong, about everything, about you. Lauren studied him for a long moment. You hurt me in ways you'll never understand, but I'm not angry anymore. You taught me what strength really costs. He nodded, eyes glistening. You deserved better. I became better, she said simply. The light turned red between them, cars passing like barriers. When it cleared, Cole was gone, swallowed by the city. She stood there for a moment, feeling the strange finality of it all. Back home, the apartment was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. She made herself tea, then sat by the window, watching the lights fade over Manhattan. For the first time, she allowed herself to rest. No strategies, no plans, just stillness. She reached for her notebook and wrote one line. Victory without peace is just another kind of war. As the clock struck midnight, Lauren closed her eyes, her hand resting gently over her growing belly. Somewhere deep inside, she knew this was what healing truly looked like. Soft, unglamorous, and real. And in that quiet New York night, Lauren Pierce finally understood that winning wasn't about taking back power. It was about never letting anyone steal her peace again. A week later, dawn spilled across Manhattan like liquid gold. The city was loud again, honking taxis, barking dogs, the smell of roasted coffee drifting through the air. But Lauren Pierce woke up before all of it. Her apartment was quiet, sunlight soft on her face, the air still carrying that strange blend of victory and uncertainty. She walked to the mirror and stared at her reflection for a long time. The woman staring back no longer looked like the one who'd been humiliated at the Plaza Hotel. The bruises beneath her eyes had faded, replaced by calm determination. But there was something else too. A heaviness. The kind that comes after surviving the impossible. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Naomi. You have interviews all week. Forbes, The Times, CNBC wants an exclusive, she said. Lauren sighed, rubbing her temples. I don't want to do a press tour. The story's already been told. People want to hear from you, not the court filings, Naomi replied. They want to know how you rose back. Lauren looked at her reflection again. Maybe the world doesn't need another success story. Maybe it needs a healing one. Naomi paused. Then tell that story. After hanging up, Lauren slipped into a soft gray sweater and poured herself tea. She sat by the window, writing in her notebook again, the same one she'd kept since the first day of the trial. Her words were simple, honest. Peace doesn't come when the noise stops. It comes when you stop needing to prove anything to anyone. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Marcus stood at the door, holding a stack of papers and a shy smile. Morning. I figured you'd still be up early, he said. She let him in, teasing, Don't you ever rest? Not when the company's future depends on post-lawsuit cleanup, he joked. But I came to show you this. He handed her a file, the new company charter. Across the first page, in clean, bold letters, was her name. Lauren Pierce, founder and chief executive officer. Her throat tightened. You made it official. It was already official, he said gently. But now it's recognized by everyone. They sat together in comfortable silence. After a moment, Marcus asked, "What will you do with all this? You've got the power, the control, the headlines. What's next?" Lauren smiled faintly. "I want to make Whitman Labs what it was meant to be, a company that heals, not exploits, and maybe create programs for women in tech who get overshadowed by men like Cole." Marcus nodded. "That's exactly what this world needs." The clock struck 9. Outside, the city buzzed awake. Lauren stood, grabbing her coat. "Walk with me to the office?" "Always," Marcus replied. They stepped out into the crisp spring air. The sidewalk shimmered with sunlight, and strangers passed without recognizing the woman who had shaken Wall Street a month ago. It felt freeing, finally being anonymous again. At a corner newsstand, Lauren paused. Her face was on the cover of Forbes Women with the headline, "The Woman Who Owned Her Story." She picked up a copy, flipping through. The article quoted her final words from court. "I didn't win to destroy him. I won to rebuild myself." She set the magazine back down, smiling softly. They finally got one thing right. Marcus looked at her. "You okay seeing it all again?" "I'm okay seeing who I became because of it," she said. As they crossed the street toward Whitman Labs, a delivery truck passed by with a slogan painted in bold blue: "Rebuild, redefine, rise." Lauren chuckled quietly. "That's exactly what I'm doing." And as she pushed open the glass doors to her company, Lauren Pierce realized peace wasn't the absence of struggle. It was walking back into it without losing herself. 2 weeks later, Whitman Labs buzzed with the kind of energy Lauren Pierce hadn't seen since the early days. Reporters were gone, lawyers were quiet, and for once the only thing people talked about was work. Yet inside Lauren, something new was building. A spark that felt like purpose. She stood in front of the mirror in her office, adjusting the microphone clipped to her blazer. Today, she would speak publicly for the first time since the trial. Not about revenge, not about scandal, but about rebirth. The company's annual conference was streaming live from the Javits Center. Thousands of employees, investors, and journalists would be watching. Naomi entered, holding a stack of notes. "You sure you don't want to read from the teleprompter?" she asked. Lauren shook her head. "If I can't speak from my heart, then none of this means anything." Marcus poked his head in. "They're ready for you. Don't hold back, boss." Lauren smiled. "I never do." Moments later, she walked onto the stage. The applause was immediate, loud, and honest. The lights were bright, but she no longer feared them. She looked out over the sea of faces, then into the nearest camera. "Good morning," she began. "6 months ago, I stood in a courtroom fighting for something bigger than ownership papers or reputation. I was fighting for truth, the kind that doesn't fit neatly in press headlines. Truth about who builds companies, who sacrifices behind closed doors, who gets written out of the story when success arrives." The room grew still. Her voice was calm but carried weight. "I was once told that silence was dignity, that being quiet was grace. But I learned that silence is also how people lose themselves. The world calls women emotional when they speak up. But I say emotion built every great thing humanity has ever known. Emotion makes us fight, heal, and rebuild." Naomi watched from backstage, pride shimmering in her eyes. Lauren continued, her tone steady. "I'm not here to rewrite the past. I'm here to make sure no one else has to fight the same battle alone. Starting today, Whitman Labs is launching the Reclaim Project, a program that funds women-led startups in tech, providing mentorship and legal education on intellectual property rights. Because no one should ever have their work stolen under the guise of love or partnership." The audience erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Marcus clapped harder than anyone. When the crowd quieted, Lauren took a small breath. "I don't stand here as someone who lost everything and got it back. I stand here as proof that losing can be the start of something greater. Forgiveness isn't weakness, it's the final form of power." She smiled softly, her hand resting briefly over her stomach. "And for those who asked how I survived, I didn't. The woman who stood in that courtroom didn't survive, she evolved." The room rose to its feet. The applause was thunderous. Lauren stepped back, letting the sound wash over her, not as validation, but as freedom. Afterward, backstage, Marcus handed her a bottle of water. "You realize you just broke the internet again, right?" Lauren laughed lightly. "Good. Maybe this time for the right reasons." Naomi joined them, holding up her phone. Your speech just hit 500,000 live viewers. They're calling you the voice of corporate redemption. Lauren shook her head. I'm just the voice of every woman who's ever been told to stay quiet. Outside the convention hall, the city roared to life. Billboards flashed her image, not as a scandal, but as a symbol. And for the first time, Lauren Pierce didn't feel like she was rebuilding her life. She was building a movement. Summer came to Manhattan with golden skies and warm nights, and with it came a new chapter for Lauren Pierce. Whitman Labs had not only survived, it was thriving. Investors returned, the media praised her leadership, and the Reclaim Project had already funded 5 women-led startups. Yet tonight wasn't about business. Tonight was about closure. Lauren stood in front of the mirror of her penthouse bedroom, slipping into a navy satin gown. It wasn't the glittering kind she once wore to Kohl's galas. This one was simple, elegant, powerful. Her reflection looked different now. Not a woman proving her worth, but one owning it. On her wrist was a thin Cartier bracelet, a quiet reminder of self-worth earned, not given. Naomi entered, holding a small envelope. Before you go, you should see this, she said. Lauren opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. You turned the ruins into light. Proud of you, Marcus. She smiled. He always knows what to say. The gala was being held at the Plaza Hotel, the very place where her humiliation began months earlier. The symbolism wasn't lost on her. Walking through those grand golden doors again felt like reclaiming a piece of herself. The chandeliers still glimmered, but this time their light didn't sting. It warmed. As she entered the ballroom, the crowd fell silent for a moment, then applause broke out. Cameras flashed. Reporters whispered, "That's her." But Lauren didn't hide. She greeted everyone with calm grace, her smile genuine. Marcus found her near the champagne fountain. "Back where it all started," he said softly. Lauren glanced around. "Yes, but I'm not the same woman who left crying in the rain that night." Naomi joined them, holding 2 glasses. "You're headlining tonight, remember? Don't get too emotional before your speech." Lauren laughed. "Emotional is my brand now." The 3 of them walked toward the stage as the orchestra played softly. The host introduced her as the woman who redefined resilience. She took the microphone, scanning the crowd. In the front row, to her quiet surprise, sat Judge Audrey Thompson, the same woman who'd ruled in her favor. Lauren smiled gratefully before speaking. 8 months ago, I stood in this very ballroom, feeling smaller than I've ever felt. I was betrayed, broken, and convinced my story was over. But life has a way of turning endings into beginnings if you refuse to give up. She paused, letting the silence breathe. Tonight, I stand here not as the victim of a scandal, but as the author of a new chapter, one built on integrity, forgiveness, and purpose. What happened to me could have destroyed me. Instead, it rebuilt me into someone who no longer needs anyone's permission to exist. Applause filled the room, slow and rising like a wave. Lauren continued, "When we created the Reclaim Project, I wanted to give women what I didn't have: knowledge, resources, protection. No one should ever lose their voice to a contract or their identity to someone else's ambition. So this," she gestured to the glowing stage, "is for every woman who's been underestimated, overlooked, or told she's too emotional to lead. Emotions built empires, and I intend to keep building." The audience stood, cheering. Even some former doubters wiped tears from their eyes. As she stepped down from the stage, Marcus whispered, "You realize you just turned your pain into a legacy." Lauren smiled, eyes glimmering. That was always the plan. Hours later, as the gala wound down, Lauren stepped outside onto the terrace overlooking Central Park. The city lights shimmered, the same skyline that once mocked her now glowing like an ally. A soft wind brushed her face. She closed her eyes and whispered, "It's over." But deep down she knew it wasn't an ending, it was a new beginning. And under the golden lights of the plaza, Lauren Pierce finally stood exactly where she belonged. In power, in peace, and entirely her own. 2 days after the gala, Lauren Pierce woke to a quiet apartment filled with soft morning light. The noise of celebration had faded, but her heart was still buzzing with something deeper than victory. It was peace. She made herself coffee, opened the balcony doors, and let the sound of the city filter in. For the first time in a year, the world didn't feel like a battlefield. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Naomi's name flashed. "Good morning, CEO of the century," she teased. Lauren laughed. "Don't start. I'm still recovering from all that applause. Naomi chuckled. Well, you might want to sit down. Something arrived for you at the office. Hand delivered. No return address. Lauren frowned. A threat? No, Naomi said softly. A letter from Cole. An hour later, Lauren sat at her desk, the envelope resting before her. It was thick, sealed with wax, Cole's old signature style. Her hands trembled slightly as she broke it open. Inside was a single handwritten letter and a folded ultrasound photo. The letter began, Lauren, I don't expect forgiveness, but I owe you truth. I lost sight of everything that mattered, chasing the idea of being someone important. You were the one building while I was posing. When you took back the company, you didn't just expose me, you saved what we created from becoming a monster. I heard about your foundation. It's everything Whitman Labs should have been. I hope our child grows up knowing the strength you carry. Please tell them their father may have failed, but he never stopped loving them, or you, in some broken way. Cole Lauren's breath hitched. The ultrasound photo wasn't theirs. It was Sienna's. A note scribbled at the bottom read, We're naming him Chance. She sat back, stunned. The man who once destroyed her was now trying to rebuild himself in the shadow of his own collapse. For a moment she felt the old ache, the love that used to live in the corners of her heart, but it didn't hurt anymore. It was just memory. Naomi entered quietly. You read it? Lauren nodded. He's trying to find redemption. Naomi sighed. People like him rarely change, but maybe losing everything taught him something. Lauren folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Maybe this is his beginning, like mine. Later that afternoon, she visited the construction site of the new Whitman Labs Innovation Wing. The air smelled of fresh paint and steel. Workers were installing a plaque at the entrance, dedicated to those who build in silence. Marcus met her there, wearing his usual easy grin. You okay? He asked. I think so, she said. He sent me a letter. Marcus looked concerned. Do I need to call security? She laughed softly. No. For once, it wasn't about control. It was closure. Marcus nodded, his voice gentle. You gave him what the world never could, grace. Lauren looked out at the skyline. Grace doesn't mean letting someone back in. It means setting yourself free. As evening fell, the city glowed like gold. Lauren placed her hand over her stomach and whispered, You'll know your story started with pain, but ended with truth. When she returned home, she slipped the letter into a box labeled Past. Inside were mementos, the old wedding photo, a torn business card, the first draft of the Aegis Code. She closed it firmly and placed it on a high shelf, out of reach. She poured herself tea and sat by the window, watching the sunset paint the city amber. For the first time, her heart felt light. The past was over. And as the skyline dimmed into twilight, Lauren Pierce finally understood that some victories aren't about defeating someone else. They're about freeing yourself from who you used to be. It had been 3 weeks since the letter arrived, and Lauren Pierce thought the past had finally gone quiet. The company was thriving. The Reclaim project was gaining national traction, and her baby's due date was just 2 months away. Her life was moving forward, steady and peaceful. But peace, she'd learned, often invited ghosts. That morning, Naomi burst into her office, slightly breathless. You're not going to like this, she said, closing the door behind her. Lauren set down her Mont Blanc pen, frowning. What's wrong? Naomi handed her a printed email. Cole requested a meeting, in person. Lauren blinked. Here? Naomi nodded. He said he just wants 10 minutes. He's clean now, no PR traps, no lawyers. I checked. He's been volunteering at a rehabilitation center upstate. I think he's trying. Lauren sat in silence. The thought of seeing him again made her chest tighten. After everything he did, what could he possibly say? Naomi met her gaze. Maybe not much, but maybe it's not about him anymore. That afternoon, the elevator chimed. Lauren stood in the lobby, waiting. When the doors opened, there he was, Cole Whitman, the man who once stood at the top of Manhattan. But this wasn't the same man. His tailored suits were gone, replaced by a plain gray jacket. His eyes, once sharp and prideful, were softer, tired, human. Lauren, he said quietly. She nodded. Cole. They sat in her office, sunlight spilling across the glass table. For a while, neither spoke. The silence between them felt like a living thing, heavy, fragile, full of everything unsaid. He finally broke it. I saw the news about the Reclaim project. You did something incredible. Lauren's voice was calm. I just fixed what you broke. He smiled faintly, accepting the truth. I deserved that. She studied him carefully. Why are you here, really? Cole looked down, his fingers tracing the edge of the chair. I wanted to say thank you for exposing me, for saving the company from me. I didn't understand back then what you were protecting. Lauren's eyes softened slightly. You weren't protecting anyone but yourself, Cole. You used people's trust like currency. He nodded, shame flickering in his eyes. I know. I've spent months trying to make sense of the man I was. Fame, money, it makes you deaf to conscience. But losing it all? It makes you listen again. Lauren crossed her arms. And Sienna? He hesitated. She left. Moved to Chicago. We don't talk. She took the baby and a chance at a quiet life. I don't blame her. For a moment, silence filled the room again. Then Cole looked up. You don't have to forgive me. I just needed to see you standing where you belong. To know you made it. Lauren took a slow breath. Forgiveness isn't something you ask for, Cole. It's something you earn. I don't hate you anymore, but I'll never excuse what you did. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed who you were supposed to be. He nodded, eyes glistening. I understand. She stood and extended her hand. He hesitated, then took it. The handshake wasn't warm, but it was real. Two people acknowledging the ruin they'd survived. As he turned to leave, he stopped at the door. I hope your child knows what kind of woman their mother is. Lauren smiled softly. They will, because I finally know it too. When the door closed behind him, she stood still, staring at the city skyline outside her window. For the first time, the memory of him didn't sting. It just existed, like a chapter finished long ago. Naomi entered quietly. You okay? Lauren exhaled. Yes, that was the last piece I needed to let go. And as the sunlight spilled over her desk, Lauren Pierce realized forgiveness wasn't weakness. It was proof she'd already won. The city was sleeping under a blanket of soft rain when Lauren Pierce felt the first contraction. It was 2:14 a.m., her apartment dim, except for the glow of a single lamp. She sat at her desk, finishing edits on a proposal for the Reclaim project, when pain rippled through her like lightning. For a second, she thought it was just stress, but then another wave came, sharp and certain. She froze, breathing through it, one hand gripping the edge of her chair, the other instinctively on her belly. Okay, she whispered to herself, it's time. Within minutes, Naomi was at her door, hair messy, wearing an oversized hoodie. You really couldn't wait until morning? She joked breathlessly, rushing in with her car keys. Lauren managed a weak laugh. I tried. Marcus showed up seconds later, holding a duffel bag. Ambulance or car? Car, Naomi answered. She's calmer than I am. They guided her carefully through the hallway. Rain tapped against the windows like a drumbeat. As they stepped into the elevator, Lauren squeezed Naomi's hand. I'm scared, she admitted softly. Naomi smiled. You've stared down boardrooms, courtrooms, and the devil himself. The car ride was a blur of city lights and pain. Lauren focused on the rhythm of the windshield wipers, counting breaths, remembering the therapist's advice. Don't fight the pain. Ride through it. By the time they reached Mount Sinai Hospital, thunder rolled over the East River. Nurses rushed her into a delivery suite, and everything became sound and motion. Monitors beeping, doctors giving calm instructions, the smell of antiseptic mixing with rain-soaked air. Hours passed in a haze of contractions and determination. Between each breath, Lauren saw flashes of her journey. The betrayal, the courtroom, the standing ovations, the letter from Cole. It all blurred into one truth. Every step had led her here. Naomi stood by her side, brushing damp hair from her forehead. You're doing amazing, she whispered. Lauren gritted her teeth through another contraction. I built a company, she gasped, but this is harder. Marcus chuckled nervously from the corner. I'll take your word for it. Another wave came, fierce and unstoppable. The doctor's voice rose gently over the chaos. One more push, Lauren. You've got this. She closed her eyes, drew a deep breath, and gave everything she had left. The room filled with sound, the pure, raw cry of new life. Tears streamed down her face as the doctor placed a small, wriggling baby in her arms. It's a girl, he said. Lauren looked down at her daughter, tiny fingers curling around hers. The world seemed to stop. All the pain, all the losses, all the noise, gone. There was only this, love so fierce it hurt in the best way. Naomi sniffled, wiping her eyes. She's perfect. Marcus smiled softly. Welcome to the world, little CEO. Lauren laughed through her tears. "Her name's Grace," she whispered, "because that's what saved me." As the rain eased outside, the nurse dimmed the lights. The skyline shimmered through the hospital window, the same city that had once broken her now watching over her like an old friend. Naomi leaned in. "How do you feel?" Lauren kissed her daughter's forehead. "Like I finally understand what all of this was for." The monitor beeped softly, steady as a heartbeat. In the corner of the room, her phone buzzed, a notification from the Whitman Labs internal channel. Marcus had posted a message. Grace Pierce was born at 6:12 a.m. Mother and daughter are healthy. A new chapter begins. Lauren smiled, cradling her baby close. And as the sun rose over Manhattan, Lauren Pierce knew she hadn't just built an empire. She'd built a legacy. 3 days after Grace was born, the world outside the hospital looked softer, quieter. The rain had passed, leaving Manhattan wrapped in pale spring light. Lauren Pierce sat by the window, her newborn asleep against her chest, the city stretching endlessly beyond the glass. Every sound felt distant, the hum of traffic, the beeping monitors, the murmurs of nurses outside. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the weight of expectation pressing on her. Just peace. Naomi entered the room, carrying a bouquet of white lilies and a smile that almost reached her ears. "You're trending again," she said, setting the flowers down. "Grace Pierce is the internet's new favorite name." Lauren rolled her eyes. "Please tell me they're not calling her the heiress of Whitman Labs." Naomi laughed. "They are. And you're officially the face of every women's empowerment campaign for the next decade." Lauren smiled tiredly. "Maybe I'll let Grace handle the interviews." Marcus walked in next, holding a plush bear and 2 coffees. "For the record," he said, "I told the board no work calls for at least 2 weeks. You're on maternity leave whether you like it or not." Lauren chuckled. "That's the first time anyone's ever forced me to rest." Marcus winked. "You've earned it, boss." As they talked, a nurse entered with discharge papers. "Ready to go home, Miss Pierce?" Home. The word felt heavier than it should have. Not an address, but a state of mind. Lauren nodded. "More than ready." A few hours later, she stepped out of Mount Sinai with Grace in her arms, the city's breeze gentle against her face. Naomi hailed a car while Marcus loaded the baby bag. Paparazzi stood across the street, cameras flashing, but this time, Lauren didn't look away. She smiled, waved politely, and kept walking. They could take their pictures. None of them could touch this moment. The car ride back to her apartment was quiet except for Grace's tiny breaths. Lauren watched the skyline roll past. The same streets that had once seen her broken, now reflecting her rebirth. When they arrived, the doorman smiled warmly. "Welcome home, Miss Pierce." Inside, sunlight poured through the wide windows. The once empty apartment now felt alive. Soft blankets, baby clothes, a small crib by the window. On the counter sat a vase of fresh tulips with a card from the board. "To new beginnings, congratulations." Lauren placed Grace gently in her crib and stood for a moment, just watching her daughter sleep. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell, steady and peaceful. Naomi whispered, "She looks just like you." Lauren smiled faintly. "I hope she's braver than I was." Marcus looked around the apartment. "You realize this is your full circle moment, right? The city that once took everything, now gave you everything back." Lauren turned toward the window, watching sunlight glint off the Chrysler building. "No," she said softly. "I gave it back to myself." Later that evening, when the visitors had left and the city lights flickered on, Lauren curled up on the couch with Grace in her arms. The hum of Manhattan below was like a lullaby. She opened her phone, scrolling past hundreds of congratulatory messages from strangers, celebrities, and journalists. But one notification made her pause. It was an email from Cole. She opened it slowly. "Lauren, I saw the news. She's beautiful. Thank you for naming her Grace. I'll stay away like I promised. But know that I'm proud of the woman you've become. Take care of her and yourself." No signature. Just silence after the words. Lauren stared at the screen, then typed 2 words, "Thank you." She hit send, closed her phone, and kissed Grace's forehead. The baby stirred, then fell back asleep. And as the city lights shimmered through the night, Lauren Pierce finally understood. Peace wasn't found in winning battles, but in choosing which ones no longer needed to be fought. 2 months later, the office of Whitman Labs looked nothing like the empire Lauren Pierce had once fled. The air was lighter, the walls brighter, and laughter echoed down hallways that used to carry only tension. A mural near the elevator now read, "Integrity is innovation." Beneath it, employees had signed their names in bright ink. Lauren walked through the lobby, Grace sleeping in a stroller beside her, Naomi and Marcus flanking her like family instead of co-workers. The team gathered to greet them, smiles, flowers, warm applause. Someone had tied a pink ribbon around the company's main logo. "Welcome back, CEO," Marcus said with a grin. Lauren smiled. "I prefer Mom and Chief." Laughter rippled through the group. She looked around, soaking in every face. These weren't just employees. They were survivors of the same storm. "You all held this place together while I was away," she said softly. "Thank you for believing in what we built." Naomi handed her a tablet. "You've got a full schedule today. Press interviews, product updates, a Reclaim project briefing, unless you want to postpone." Lauren shook her head. "No, today's about showing the world what comes after redemption, rebuilding." They walked into the main boardroom, sunlight spilling across the glass table. Photos of the Reclaim project's first cohort lined the wall. 10 women entrepreneurs, each with their own company born from adversity. A banner above read, "From survival to success." Marcus began the briefing. "Funding doubled last quarter. Our new mentorship platform is getting recognition from the UN Women's Innovation Council, and Forbes wants to feature you again." Lauren rolled her eyes playfully. "Only if they promise no headlines about the scandal that started it all." Naomi smirked. "They actually suggested the CEO who rebuilt her world." Lauren paused, considering. "Maybe this time I'll let them tell it." Halfway through the meeting, Grace started to fuss. Without hesitation, Lauren scooped her up, rocking her gently while continuing to listen. The board members didn't blink. They'd grown used to the sight of leadership and motherhood coexisting. When the meeting ended, Marcus lingered behind. "You've changed everything here," he said quietly. "Not just the company, the culture. People trust again." Lauren smiled. "That's the only currency that ever mattered." As they left the boardroom, she noticed the reflection of herself and Grace in the glass wall, the image of two lives intertwined, strong yet gentle. It wasn't power that defined her anymore, it was purpose. Later that afternoon, she recorded a message for the Reclaim Project's online platform. The camera rolled as she spoke from her office, Grace cooing softly on her lap. "Sometimes," she began, "the world breaks you to rebuild you. I used to think power meant control, until I lost everything. What I learned is that real power is the courage to start again, even when no one believes you can." She smiled at her daughter. "And to every woman watching this, you are not the supporting role in someone else's story. You are the author." When the recording ended, the crew clapped quietly. Naomi dabbed at her eyes. "You just changed lives again," she said. As dusk settled, Lauren stood by her office window, watching Manhattan glow beneath her feet. The city no longer looked like a battlefield. It looked like possibility. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Your story gave my wife the courage to start her own business. Thank you." Lauren's chest tightened with emotion. She typed back simply, "Tell her to keep building." Behind her, Grace stirred, tiny fingers gripping the edge of her blouse. Lauren kissed the top of her head. "We're just getting started, little one." And as the lights of New York shimmered like stars reborn, Lauren Pierce realized she hadn't just reclaimed her life. She'd created a future others could follow. A year later, spring returned to Manhattan, soft and forgiving. The cherry trees along Central Park were blooming again, their petals drifting through the air like tiny pink snowflakes. Lauren Pierce walked the familiar path by the lake, her daughter Grace toddling beside her, gripping her hand with determined little fingers. Each step felt symbolic, a slow, gentle reclaiming of everything she'd once lost. The skyline shimmered in the distance, the same towers that had watched her fall, now witnessing her peace. She wore no designer labels, no armor of power, just a cream trench coat, jeans, and quiet confidence. Every passerby seemed to smile at her without knowing who she was, and that anonymity felt like the sweetest luxury. Naomi met them at a bench under the trees, holding 2 coffees and a file folder. "You can't even take a walk without signing something, can you?" she teased. Lauren laughed, sitting down. "The Reclaim Project doesn't sleep." Grace climbed onto her lap, clutching a small stuffed bear. "Mommy work?" she asked. Just a little, Lauren said, kissing her forehead. Naomi handed over the file. This is the last one, confirmation from the Education Board. Your new foundation is officially accredited. The Lauren Pierce Institute for Ethical Leadership is real. Lauren's breath caught. We actually did it, Naomi grinned. You did it, and it's going to change everything. As they talked, Marcus appeared, camera in hand. I had to capture this, he said. The woman who turned heartbreak into history. Lauren groaned playfully. If this ends up on LinkedIn, I'm firing you. Marcus smiled. Too late. You're trending whether you like it or not. They all laughed, the sound carrying across the park. But beneath the laughter was something deeper. Gratitude. The kind that comes only after surviving a storm. When the others left, Lauren stayed by the lake a little longer, watching the water ripple with the wind. Grace played in the grass, giggling at the ducks. For a moment, Lauren allowed herself to feel it all. The exhaustion, the pride, the quiet joy. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared. Hi Lauren, it's Cole. I'm writing from a rehab center in Vermont. I just wanted to say thank you. Not for forgiveness. I don't deserve that, but for proving that even the worst of us can inspire something good. I hope you and Grace are well. Take care. Lauren stared at the screen, the words softening something inside her she thought was long gone. She typed back simply, We're doing more than well. I hope you find peace. She put the phone away and looked at her daughter again. Grace's laughter echoed, bright and innocent. It struck Lauren then. This was the true legacy, not the company, not the headlines, but the life she'd rebuilt from nothing. Later that evening, she returned home to her apartment overlooking the river. The sunset painted the sky gold and pink. She sat at her desk, the same one where she once signed away her trust, and began writing a letter for Grace to read someday. My dearest Grace, if you ever wonder what strength looks like, don't look for heroes. Look for the moments when you choose kindness after pain, honesty after betrayal, and love after loss. I built a company, but you built me. Everything I fought for was so you could grow up knowing that power doesn't come from what you own. It comes from what you refuse to give up. She sealed the letter, tucking it into a small wooden box beside a silver necklace engraved with the initials GP. Outside, the city glowed, its heartbeat steady and eternal. Lauren lifted Grace into her arms and whispered, We made it. The little girl smiled sleepily against her shoulder. And as the last light faded over Manhattan, Lauren Pierce realized her story had never been about revenge or redemption. It had always been about grace. So that's how our story ends. Or maybe how it truly begins. You're still here, aren't you? If you've made it this far, something in Lauren's journey must have touched your heart in a quiet, personal way. Maybe it reminded you of your own storms, the moments when life broke you just to rebuild you stronger. Like Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the obstacle is the way. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every fall, they're not endings. They're invitations to rise. Lauren's story teaches us that forgiveness isn't surrender, and silence isn't weakness. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means looking at your scars and realizing they no longer control you. You can start over, no matter how much you've lost. You can rebuild your story, not from anger, but from grace. So if her story reached something inside you, don't just scroll away. Take a breath. Reflect. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that pain can become power. And if you want more stories like this, stories that speak to the soul and remind you of your strength, hit that like button, share it, and subscribe. We're building a space for healing, one story at a time.